Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. This is the 3-Month Vacation. I'm Sean D'Souza. In the last episode on how to manage your energy while writing an article, we covered a couple of points. And the first point was how to space out everything. Write your topics on Monday and then your subtopics on Tuesday, outlines on Wednesday, and write on Thursday and edit on Friday. And that was the first thing that we looked at. And that saves a lot of energy because it puts space between what you're doing, and it's very energy efficient, which is what I love the most, to conserve that energy so I can do a lot of stuff in the day. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we covered was this factor of a timer. And you don't have to believe me, but get yourself a timer and then say 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever the activity is. Say you have to write the article and you're going to take 90 minutes. Well, after 90 minutes, you stop. And then you come back the next day and you look at the article. But after 90 minutes, you do not go forward. And that will save you a lot of energy and you will have more time to do stuff in the day. Now, this reads a lot like, how do I write my article? But it's, how do I save my energy so I can do other stuff and still write my article? And one of the biggest factors that suck up energy is research. That's what we're going to cover in this episode, which is never to research when writing the article. If you were to put all the energy drainers together and you were to pick one of them, then the biggest of them would be research. You need research to prove your point. You need to get examples. Maybe you just need to start out your article and you need to get the first 50 words going. And so you need all this research. The only time that you should not be doing that research is when you're writing the article. Now, I'll have to admit, I occasionally still do some research when I'm writing the article. I want to make a great start to the article, so I'll go looking for a story. And the moment I do, I'm off into that big black hole they call the internet. What's worse is that many hours later, I may have not found the facts or the story I need. And the article is still left undone, which is why a software like Evernote was invented. Now, I've covered the concept of Evernote before, and you can look up the earlier podcast and you'll find a lot about Evernote. And the idea is pretty simple. We all collect information, but we can't find the information at the exact time that we need it. Well, that's what Evernote is stunningly good at doing. No matter if you're online or offline, Evernote can comb through all the information that you've saved, and it can even read your handwriting, or it can read the writing on a photograph. So you don't have to go hunting for stuff at the last minute. I used to be a cartoonist, and cartoonists used to keep reference books. Photography was too expensive as a hobby when I was growing up, and so all our reference books were based on cuttings. Newspaper cuttings, magazine cuttings, all kinds of cuttings. And when I started out in the world of copywriting, again, all those case studies were stored in Windows folders on the computer. But it was a pain to find anything in a matter of seconds. As you probably know from past articles or podcasts, I now store everything in Evernote. And I started storing hundreds of stories and data and case studies that I would need for future articles. I don't even know what the notes are going to be useful for in the future. I have information about fungus, about elephants, about Airbnb, the invention of the mouse, the lemon index, and there are hundreds of pieces of information that I can easily find in the future. As I write this piece, I'm going to need some of that Airbnb information. I'm also going to need some information on Zappos.com. And it's all there, it's already in place. I'm not going to need to go online and waste time. In fact, since I was going to write that article sometime this week, I've already reviewed the material in Evernote and I've marked out what's important. You see how much energy is being saved? Most writers spend enormous time in research. The way I go about it is to clip stuff the way I did when I was a cartoonist or copywriter. I clip stuff in advance. I store it in Evernote. And then when I need it, it's already curated, it's already underlined, and it's ready to go. Even so, there are times when I need information and I can't find it. In such a scenario, you still don't want to go online. And what I tend to do is I use my own case study. So let's say I wanted to write an article about how to find the right problem. Now I can't find the story online, or I've just not prepared for this moment of writing. In such a situation, I pop over to 5000 BC or even to Facebook and I ask others for their story. Often the stories will come thick and fast, but more importantly, their story will lead you to remember a story of your own, a case study of your own. When you're stuck, use a case study from your own business, from your own life. You already know the facts, you don't have to do any research, you already know all the details. And this case study, it brings your business to life. If your case study is about success, clients love that story. If it's about failure, they realize that you too are human. In fact, I will use a lot of stories from Psychotactics for that very reason. Instead of being this random business that you know nothing about, now Psychotactics becomes human. Now what's ideal is that you should have a mix of both. Stories and case studies from businesses and companies and case studies from your own business and company. No one is saying that you shouldn't do your research. It's very interesting to find out all of those case studies online. It's so interesting to find out case studies of how, say, maybe Airbnb started, how the New York trains got rid of their graffiti. Maybe a story or a case study of how a company increased its sales by 33% or lost 47.5%. And all of this is always going to be interesting to your clients. But then, so are the case studies and stories from your own life. So mix them up and your articles become far more engaging. But most of all, it's all about energy. Any research will suck up all the energy you have. So save the information in advance. Even if you've tried to use Evernote before and you've failed, give it another few tries. Listen to the podcast on Evernote and you'll see why so many people struggle. Oh, and get yourself the premium version because you'll want offline access as well. That offline access means you will be able to browse through your case studies while at the cafe or in that hut in the woods. And this brings us to the end of the series on how I save energy when writing an article. And I've got about 4 minutes left before my timer goes off. So let's do a summary, shall we? When you look at article writing, you possibly look at it as sitting down to write. Instead, the goal should be to maximize your energy so that your article doesn't go up in flames. When I started writing articles, I didn't realize the importance of energy. I'd want to get to the end point. And that was why I ended up being utterly drained after writing. Even as you're listening to this summary, you may not realize that I have split this up into many days. That I wrote the topics on one day, the outline on another, the article on the third, and the summary on the fourth. Why? Because by the time I finished writing this script yesterday, I needed some pasta arrabbiata with the gluten and everything. Besides, writing summaries drives me crazy. I would rather write 2 or 3 articles than a single summary. As you can probably figure out, I need it to be fresh. So here I am at 4:50 a.m. writing the summary before I bail out and do something else. I'm doing what needs the most energy, and I'm doing it first thing in the morning because otherwise I'm in trouble. So anyway, let's go back to the summary. What did we cover? The first topic was putting space between your activities. We've already gone over this a fair bit, even here in the summary. But the main thing to consider is this. Think of your writing as a journey, not a dash to the next room. Plan it and then roll it out day by day. First the topics, then the subtopics, then the outline. And it's only at this point that you should start writing the article. When you write, just write. If you write, edit, write, well, you'll spend more time editing than writing. And we all know how that story ends, don't we? You need to write on one day and edit on another day. And this podcast, the script, same thing. It has gone through this stage by stage process, and that's why it ends up a lot better than if I just went from start to finish. The second thing is using a timer. There's a huge difference between a timer and a deadline. A deadline is something far off in the future, maybe something tomorrow morning or next week, who knows. But a timer, it fixes the slots for each of the activities. So you have 10 minutes for your topics, and then you stop. And then it's 30 minutes for the outline, and then you stop, and so on. The timer regulates every section of your article, so that you start and you stop. You may not be totally convinced about the timer, and yet there have been dozens of clients who've been through the article writing course. At first they're skeptical about the timer, but as the course continues, they see it as being energy saving because it's such a tough course. And if they don't save their energy, they can't run their business. So they'll realize that the timer is important. They understand the value of having that energy because they have lives to lead, they have businesses to run. Writing is an energy-intensive task. I'd sit down to write without a timer and I was asking for trouble. Now, when I write, I get a timer and then I stop. Even now, as I was writing, I had a friend, Stefano from Italy. He was chatting with me on WhatsApp, and I realized that I was running out of time. So once I saw 2 movies and a picture of Stefano's kids, I went back to writing. So we all have to bow to the timer gods because the distraction is so intense. Stefano is a great guy, but then so is my timer. So the timer is really important because it puts those blockages for every single one of those activities. And the third part is never to research when writing an article. Research is the most amazing part of the article, but you have to do it in advance. I watch Netflix and there's this chef that's doing something amazing. So what I do is I make a note of it. I read yesterday about this couple that were making a low-cost house and they had a great demand for it. I made a note of it. Volcanoes, the great daisy forests of the Galapagos Islands, how Airbnb started, it's all interesting. But I will not go hunting for all this information when I'm writing. All of this has to be found in advance. It has to be stored away. It has to be stored away in Evernote or OneNote or whatever software you want to store it in. And then when you need the information, you can find it not in minutes, but in seconds. You don't need another cup of Starbucks. You need the premium version of Evernote. So start using it on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet. Store everything incessantly. That's what I do. That's how I have so many hundreds of stories, case studies, and facts at my disposal. So get Evernote and start using it like it should be used. Despite the fact that I write over 4,000 words a week, writing is still ridiculously time-consuming. What I need, what we all need, is energy on our side. Save energy and you will save time. How weird is that? Anyway, that brings us to the end of this section on how I save energy while writing articles. Well, what's happening in Psychotactics land? By the time you listen to this podcast, I will have gone to Brisbane and to Byron Bay and then be headed to the Gold Coast to make this presentation at wearepodcast.com. Podcasting has changed the way we do things. It has increased our sales. It has increased our membership. It has done something that we didn't expect to happen, and yet it did. So I feel compelled to give back to the community, so that's why we're going to be at this event. And I'm going to talk about how to tell stories, which is what I did last year. I did a storytelling workshop in Nashville and then in Amsterdam, and we haven't done anything about that, and people have been asking about it. We'll do something in 2017. Let's see how it goes. Right here in 2016, we have the pre-sale course. That's on the 15th of October, 15th, 16th, and 17th of October. It's a PDF, and it shows you specifically how we go about pre-selling and why we sell out faster than pretty much anybody on the internet. I have no clue what everyone on the internet does, but I know that we have no joint ventures and no affiliates and no advertising and nothing, and we sell out faster than anybody I know. Nobody sells out courses and nobody sells out products as quickly as we do, and with such a small audience. So that's the precise thing, which is we're working with very small lists, like in some cases as few as 400 people. So there you go. That's the pre-sale course on 15th, 16th, and 17th of October. Get your copy and you'll find out for yourself. That's all from me at Psychotactics Land. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.